So the bad news is that I've not finished anything this week. However, it's not too much of a problem. I promised myself I wouldn't start any new games until New Year's, like around January, once I've got all the partying out of the way. I did, however, make a decent chunk of progress in a bunch of games, so I'm going to talk about those. The first game of that was SMT V. I played a ton of that. I'm in the final dungeon, but I really don't want to beat the game without taking down the Demi-Fiend boss, since I paid $10 for him. That means I've been running around the final dungeon for hours at a time, grinding, trying to hit level 99 so I can go kill him. Luckily, I have a demon called Trumpeteer, who just has what I can only describe as a Thanos snap, just to kill a guy immediately. It never seems to miss, either. So grinding isn't too bad, it's just time consuming. Also, I paid $10 at launch to get, what they call Elden and Artemis. I realized when I was running around the final dungeon that I didn't have Artemis. So I went back, I tried to look for the quest to get her, only to realize that, like, I've done everything. All the quests in the game are marked with these little scrolls on the map, and I had seemingly done them all. So I had to go look it up, found that she was being hidden by some scientist who is unmarked as a quest giver. And when I talked to her, she gave me 3 more quests for not only Artemis, but Cleopatra and Mephisto as well. So that was kind of cool. The only problem with that is I'm getting Artemis so late that she's level 40-ish and I'm level 80. So thankfully I stocked up a bunch of those demon level up books to bring her up to speed. But, you know, I kind of wish that the quest that I paid money for wasn't hidden behind a fucking unmarked NPC. Whatever. Also, I think I've leveled up way too much for the base game. I was in the final dungeon going a bit deeper to try and find enemies that give more experience, and I came across a mini-boss, and the demon they use for the mini-boss is usually a pretty big guy in other games, except when I fought him in this dungeon, I had like 13 levels on him and I bodied him in a couple of minutes, so I imagine when I finish with Demi-Fiend, the story boss is going to be a complete joke. Also, between grinding sessions and SMT, I was also playing a fair bit of Elden Ring, mainly just exploring, taking in the sights, but I managed to kill a few bosses. There was the Sanguine Noble, which was a disappointing encounter, because not only was it stupidly easy, but I swear I've killed like 4 or 5 of these dudes around ruins and whatnot, and only they didn't have a fancy life bar, and this guy did, so whatever. I found a cave with more of those Crystarian bosses, which look really cool, but they're pathetically easy. Especially if you've been leveling up a club alongside a regular weapon like I have. I also went to a foggy wood and murdered something called Wormface. And it was at that point I really started to question if the weapon I picked for my playthrough, the hook claws, are just overpowered. Or maybe I'm just really good. I don't know. Then I went on to find a little village that had a sort of Midsommar vibe. There was kind of like, I don't know, hags dancing around maypoles. And the boss at the top of there nearly managed to get a kill on me, but I managed to get him first try. The weapon he dropped was also really cool. Although it's a shame I can't bring myself to switch from the claws, they're just too good. I'm actually kind of feeling pretty lukewarm about Elden Ring. It's not a bad game by any stretch, but it's just so easy that I get bored pretty quickly into a session. That video I recorded last week was actually the most I had died for a long time, and even that was, what, like 5 tries before I killed him? I mean, maybe it's unfair to say Elden Ring is easy, per se, but the problem is that the world is so densely packed with stuff that getting a large amount of rooms for level ups is extremely easy. So by the time I've finished exploring and I'm moving on to encounters that actually matter, I'm just kind of too strong. Although I'm framing this as a bad thing because I'm the kind of weirdo that likes to bash my head off insanely hard games. But the good thing about Elden Ring is that because it's designed that way, it makes it very easy to recommend to people. Like, I've tried to tell my non-Souls playing friends before about other games in the franchise, and sometimes the reaction I get is, oh no, I can't possibly play that, it's too brutal for me, no way. But, you know, Elden Ring being designed the way it is, where if you just do any kind of exploration, you kind of over-level yourself a fair amount, I think it's a good entry game for people. Like, if you wanted to get into Souls and you're worried about the difficulty curve, Elden Ring's a good place to start. It's a good kind of gateway game into the franchise, and I think that's great. And finally, the other game I made a lot of progress in was Neon White, which, I'm not kidding, may be my game of the year if it keeps up like this. I've not finished it yet, so I'm going to reserve judgment, but it's looking that way. I mean, it's so fast and fluid, and the level design is really good, and the soundtrack fucking slaps. It's just an all-around really good time. Like, usually in games like this, I'm not particularly interested in getting, like, the top rank times for each level, but I will not move on from a stage unless I have the Ace Medal, which is the highest one, and the level gift. Like, I need to do everything. You only need gold ranks to progress the game. You have something called a Neon rank, and getting a gold rank lowers it so you can get through the story. But I have to get the ace every time. I can't not. There's been a pretty significant difficulty spike, though. I think I'm in chapter 6, and there's traps that involve tripwires, and the level design's getting kind of tricky. In most previous stages, I could get the best time for a level within 1 to 3-ish tries. But now I'm really having to like stop and think and, you know, put a route together. And then even when I know what I'm doing, executing the route can kind of be pretty tricky. So, I mean, I don't hate that. It's what makes getting the ace time like way more satisfying. So I'm appreciating the challenge. I still have some issues with the voice acting, although it's growing on me. Like, I didn't like, it was kind of over the top and a bit too for kids anime, but you know, I'm kind of warming up to it. And Steve Blum is the main character. I just like anything that Steve Blum's in. So, you know, even with that tiny gripe, the game is so focused on fast platforming that it's not sullying my enjoyment of the game at all. Anyway, that's all I've really been playing this week. Hopefully this coming week I can finish at least something. I should at least be able to finish Neon White. I don't think there's that much of it left. But who knows, only time will tell, really. Anyway, I'll see you next week.